All right, welcome to Michael's Record Collection. I'm very happy to have with me today John Payne from Asia featuring John Payne. John, thanks for your time.
Yeah, good to see you again. And as we previously talked, after so many years,
Yeah.
and how much older we look now.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. I saw you guys perform at Gulfstream Park when you were when there was only one Asia, and you were with
That's right.
Jeff Downs and Chris and Guthrie were in the
Yeah,
band at the time. And so thank you for your
that was a
time.
cool lineup. I enjoyed
Yeah,
that lineup.
yeah, and it was a good show too. Um,
Yeah,
Oh, we got a guest appearance by
really good.
Pup.
Two dog guest appearances.
There we go.
Right.
So, so you've got an anniversary tour coming up. You've got the
Yes.
40th anniversary of the 1982 self-titled Asia album, and the 30th anniversary of this album, Aqua, the first one you were on.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about this upcoming tour.
Well, as you well know, and not to disperse any confusion, obviously I wasn't on the first Asia album.
Correct.
That was Jeff, Carl, and Steve, and John. And I went out and bought that album. Little did I know that 10 years later, I'd be the lead singer and bassist in that band. So what was cool was I was thinking at the end of last year, it's going to be 30 years of Aqua. I want to go out and do a tour. And as we do the music of Asia through the years, from pretty much every Asia album, I spent 15, 16 years in the band with Jeff and did eight studio albums. I thought, well, it's actually the 40th anniversary of the original lineup's Asia album, and I play all the hits off that a lot of the time, and I thought, well, let's call this the 40th, 30th anniversary and celebrate the music of Asia on those two albums. So we're rehearsing up the first album and Aqua. So we're going to try and do as many of those songs that will fit into a 90-minute, 2-hour show. Traditionally, especially back in vinyl, most albums are about 45 minutes long, but I tend to talk a lot. So as my manager says, like, keep your gob shut and get on with playing some more music. So it's going to be fun. I mean, it's been 30 years since or more since I performed some of those songs. Certainly stuff like Far Cry, Heaven on Earth, Someday, Crime of the Heart, Lay Down Your Arms. I play Who'll Stop the Rain at every show, but I don't do any more from Aqua, and that was my first entry in the band, and an album I'm very proud of. So it's going to be great fun performing all the songs.
What is the lineup of Asia featuring John Payne at the moment?
So we have myself, obviously, and we have Johnny Fedovich, who is on drums, and he's been in the band for a long time. Moni Scaria, who's been in the band pretty much since Guthrie Govan left, and a keyboard player, multi-instrumentalist called Jonathan Gilchrist, and he plays sax, violin, clarinet, flute, guitar, bass. The guy's a genius, and everybody sings really good. So it's a really fun with these guys that I've been with now for quite a long time on our weekend warrior dates, where we do 1 or 2 gigs a weekend. This is going to be back to the old days of getting on the road again. I know July is about 15 dates so far, so that's going to be great fun doing back-to-back shows.
So the plan is to do 90 minutes. You're not going to just do the 1982 self-titled album and Aqua in their entirety. You're just going to kind of see what kind of time you have.
Yeah, I haven't timed it yet. I know Aqua was pretty long as an album. It might have been 70 minutes. I know the original album's under 45. So it's going to be hard to drop much stuff at all. If it's allowed, normally contracts in a lot of places top out at 90 minutes. But we have no problems. I think certainly on a 2-hour show, we'd get everything done. So hopefully we can stretch some of the venues to go beyond 90 minutes, so as we can do them in their entirety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, if you had time, you would do all of both albums. That wouldn't leave you any time for some of the other stuff from Aura and Silent Nation.
I don't think we're going to do any of those albums at all.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I'd like to, I think going from this point, maybe next year I'll start introducing some of those albums, and it's going to be coming up soon for their 30th anniversaries.
Yeah.
So I think it would be just cool. I know bands, my friends like Cheap Trick, they'll go out and do Dream Police one night and then do another album another night. I think it's cool to hear an album in its entirety, in its running order, for some kind of familiarity,
Yeah.
So hopefully I can time it that we will do everything. That's what I'm going to rehearse.
Yeah.
And then it's going to depend on the contract at the venue, how long I can do.
Yeah. Is it strange for you that there are two touring bands with the Asia moniker?
Yeah, it is, and it's never always been the most ideal. It's always difficult being the second singer in a band, firstly.
Mm-hmm.
Although, as I said, I recorded 8 studio albums and 15 years in the band, and there hasn't really been another recorded vocalist with Asia, although, there have been other singers now, particularly after John Wetton passed away. I think they've had Billy Sherwood, and then Bumblefoot, and then now I think they've got Mark Bonilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I believe it's just Jeff and Carl and the other 2 guys on their tour. And yeah, it's not ideal. But when Asia reformed, I was still in the band, and then we had to make an agreement, whereas I could go forward from that point on. Mm-hmm. In 2006, 2007, while the original lineup formed, and the original lineup was only going to be like an anniversary tour. But I think once they started, they realized that they were the original lineup, and that first album did sell so well, so they continued, and then I continued, and I basically concentrated on the US. Mm. And also, over the years since 2007, they haven't done that much touring, because the members had other commitments of Yes and stuff. So mm-hmm. Yeah. It's as long as I think it's clear that which versions of the band, who's in it, from kind of both points of view, people can then decide which or both they want to go and see. So
yeah,
it's the way that it is, and I can't change that.
Yeah, it's not the first time. I mean, there's been 2 versions of Wishbone Ash and Sweet, and various other bands as well.
And yes, mm-hmm. Really.
Yeah.
Even though John Anderson doesn't use the name, but yeah, it's not the first time.
Yeah.
And you've got to remember that that it's a long time ago now.
Yeah.
As I say, it's 40 years since the first album, 30 years since I joined. That's a lot of people don't still have a musical career, gone on to do other things, you know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing anything else, and I love what I do. And you know, I've had a couple of other side projects with GPS and Dukes of the Orient as well.
Sure.
And I have a studio here at home, and I like, you know, mixing and producing as well. So, you know, music keeps me busy.
Yeah. You mentioned that you like to do other projects, and just happened a couple of weeks ago. I spoke with Lana Lane, who you sang on her album Neptune Blue.
Yeah, I did some backing vocals for her on that, and they came to my studio here in Las Vegas, and we recorded the drums and a lot of the guitars from one of my guitarists, Jeff Coleman,
Mm-hmm.
and who's out on the road with Alan Parsons at the moment, or they were. But yeah, I engineered some of that as well, and then Lana and I did a lot of the backing vocals, and it's kind of fun, you know. Eric and Lana are a family, and they have been for a long time. And she's a great singer. She's definitely got that Ann Wilson thing going on, and I think they've got some really good songs on that album.
Yeah, for sure. I was telling her, I thought, because I know Mark McCrite and Eric also did some backing vocals, and I told her when I saw that your name was in the credits, I was listening for you because you have a very distinctive voice, and I wasn't able to pick you out because of the way that the voices were blended together. You know, the backing vocals were blended together, and I thought, I told her, I said, number one, that's probably a good thing because I like the way it sounded, but also it was frustrating for me because I couldn't pick you out.
Yeah, you know, because I wasn't doing any kind of lead parts, so
Hmm.
we did a lot of crowd vocals where Lana and I were screaming at the tops of our voices and trying not to giggle. But it was more big backing vocal pads, which is funny. That's how I started the business as a whippersnapper. You know, I used to do backing vocals for a lot of known artists and stuff.
Yeah. One of the questions I had for you was how you got involved with Roger Daltrey because you've been on multiple Roger Daltrey solo albums.
Yeah, and maybe you can hear me a bit more on those albums, especially like on the track Under a Raging Moon, which I sung the backing vocals with John Parr.
Hmm.
I remember St. Elmo's Fire, John. I was living in a village outside London called Harpenden and playing local gigs with my band. And this guy came down and he introduced himself after our show and said, "Oh, my name's Alan Shacklock. I'm from a band called Babe Ruth. I'm the guitarist, but I'm also a record producer." And he said, "I'm producing an album with Roger Daltry. Would you like to come and sing on it?" And I was like, "What? Who's this guy? What's this bullshit?" And we became friends, and I worked with him on a few albums. He worked with an artist called Paxi Kenzet and a few other things. And yeah, it was great. We worked at a lot of the big London studios recording that album.
Yeah. So one thing I like to ask my guests is, what was your first favorite record?
So I had a lot of things that I listened to, which actually helped develop my falsetto and stuff. And my dad had an 8-track with the stylistics on.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved that old R&B. So there was stuff like that. And my dad was always playing Nat King Cole and Tony Bennett. So grew up listening to a lot of that. You know, and I went out and bought other things, but I suppose one of my first records was Deep Purple in Rock, I think, was one of my first albums. And there were a few just going on a little bit further that were just landmarks for me, like Breakfast in America or Foreigner 4 or again, Purple Live in Japan early Rainbow, um, and the list goes on. But you know, there were some iconic albums that I can listen to this day, and they still sound incredible.
Yeah. I'm glad it tickles me that you brought up Foreigner 4 because if I'm not mistaken, isn't Lou Graham at some of these shows, doing some of these shows with you guys?
Yeah, Lou and I are good friends, and you know, he's been a hero of mine for a long, long time. I bought many Foreigner albums, and I just love Lou's voice, and particularly mix songwriting and the two of them together. And yeah, I've done a ton of shows with Lou, and we work together great. And he guests with Asia FJP quite a lot. And I'm sorry, I'm being attacked by a dog.
That's all right.
Excuse me, I'm doing an interview, dear dog. So yeah, he's done a lot of shows with us, and we do a set that's 45 minutes of Asia, and then I introduce Lou, and we do 45 minutes of Foreigner, and it's great to play those songs. I mean, and sing with Lou and stuff. You know, I kind of developed a skill. I've got another thing called Voices of Classic Rock now,
Mm-hmm.
and I had you know, the Rock Pack and the 80s Rock Tour. And you know, I had a show that I worked on in Vegas as well. So I work a lot with a lot of iconic singers, um, from Billy Gibbons to Lou to Robin Zander to Mickey Thomas, Fee Waybill from the Tubes, and it's like a dream come true. You know, you're pinching yourself.
Yeah.
You're playing some of these songs with the original vocalist. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a who's who right there.
Yeah,
Rock music, it's just tremendous. So I want to get into Aqua because we're going to talk about this anniversary album.
yeah,
Um, this was released on June 8th, 1992, and it's got a little different sequencing in the U.S. than it does in the U.K.
right.
Little track differences, but the same songs, just different order. And it was recorded at Advision Studio in Brighton. What do you remember about recording there?
So this is quite interesting. I'd worked with Jeff, and he had a project that was going to be called Rain, and we had a manager in the States, and we went into Advision Studios in London first before they relocated to the coast in Brighton. And Advision recording studios in London, like Big Generator was done there, and lots of huge albums. And I remember recording Don't Call Me and Who'll Stop the Rain with Jeff for this project. I'd met Jeff through Phil Spaulding, who was the bass player in GTR, and we became friends and started working together. And then I joined ELO, and it was going to be called ELO, then ELO Part 2, and did a bit of work with Jim Steinman, who was going to produce it. But it never came to fruition, or was just going through so much contractual hell with Jeff Lynne and Bev Bevan that I went, well, see what happens. And Jeff calls me one day and said, "Oh, can you come to these studios in London and have a chat?" So I went there, and Jeff and his manager come to me and say, "Well, would you like to join Asia?" And I said, "Well, isn't John the singer?" And he's, "No, John's left to do a solo career. Would you like to join Asia?" And I went, "I see what, you know, I play bass, but I play bass and sing separately. You know, when I started, I was a guitarist vocalist in a three-piece. So I go to them, well, let me go and think about it, because I'm in Asia. I need to talk to Don Arden. And Don Arden's a pretty, you know, formidable person. He hung Robert Stigwood out of the window, you know. These were tough guys, the English managers in those days. So I thought about it, and I went, okay, let's go for it. And um, that was probably 1991. So we then finished off Who'll Stop the Rain and Don't Call Me, wrote some extra songs, and did part of it in London, and then the other part at Advision in Brighton. And they were amazing times, you know. And the budgets on those albums were big in those days, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we, in the studio, which was a converted church in Brighton, we basically lived there for 4 months doing the album, you know, just residential day after day, 12 hours every day for 4 months.
So this was yourself on bass and lead vocals, Jeff Downes on keyboards, Carl Palmer on drums, but a little bit different from for Asia. You had Steve Howe and also Al Pitrelli on guitars, and there were some additional musicians as well. There was Anthony Glynn, Simon Phillips, and Nigel Glockler. What was the story behind the additional musicians coming in?
Well, I don't think it was ever wanted to be a full-time thing for Carl and Steve. Carl was still ELPing. Steve had a lot of yes commitments, and I don't think either of them wanted to commit fully to doing the album, but wanted to be part of it. And there's some great input from both of them. You know, Carl's almost Bonham-esque drumming on The Voice of Reason, and Steve's stuff on Who'll Stop the Rain, and then we brought in some guest musicians that we'd all worked with before. You know, Nigel Glockler was from Saxon. He plays on Heaven and Earth and a couple of other tracks. Simon Phillips, Back in Town, I think he plays on something else. Love Under Fire, which actually Greg Lake wrote with Jeff. And it was kind of cool to do it that way. Jeff and I were trying to treat it like, and we did further on, is we treated it like a Steely Dan in a way, you know. We wanted to do that.
Okay. So we had Aqua Part 1 and 2 bookend this album.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind that? Who came up with that, and you know what went into that decision? Because that was an interesting change.
I've always wanted some title track. You know, we did that on Arena with Into the Arena, and even on Aria, we brought back a melody from the song to the end for the Aria track. But you know, I wanted to take Asia in a little bit more of a progressive way, and I thought it was nice to have a little journey, and it was so cool recording Steve playing nylon guitar, because he's such a versatile guitarist. And I thought it was nice to bookend the album that way. I mean, we did some cool things on the album. We were in Brighton, which is right by the seaside, and you know, we even went down one night and recorded The Ocean, which is on Aqua Part 1. That was not library. We recorded a Harley motorbike outside the street. We got this guy to turn up. We met this Hell's Angel in the pub in Brighton and said, look, could you just bring your Harley and drive it up and down the street, and we'll record it between two mics? And that's the beginning of Back in Town.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun. It was quite inventive times, and you know, I always want to try and create a classic album in the ways that bands like Supertramp did and stuff, with these various musical journeys, and not just a bunch of song demos put together, but you know, an album.
Yeah. It's one of the cool things about Aqua is that right off the bat, you guys set a mood with that, like you mentioned, Steve Howe's guitar and then Jeff Downes' keyboard washes, and it really puts you into the mood, and it leads very nicely into "Who'll Stop the Rain," which was just a tremendous song. Probably should have been a bigger hit, in my opinion, but a good song. A lot of this album was written by Jeff Downes with Johnny Warman. I'm not
Yes.
that familiar with him. But did Jeff bring a lot of these songs into the session already worked on, or?
So he did, yeah. So Who Stopped the Rain was already written, as were some of the songs, and I did some melodic changes on some of the vocal lines, but some were already written, and I did the same with. I brought in a couple of songs too, and then Jeff and I wrote some songs together, because this was, as I said, came from another project, and Jeff had some songs that he'd written beforehand. So, after that point, when we started going to the other albums, it was nearly always 50-50, Jeff and myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I brought Heaven on Earth in from a project called The Passion that I was working with Andy Nye from the Michael Schenker Group on keyboards. So it was a start of something. Aqua really was the thing that started it all for me with Asia.
Yeah, you and Jeff had a very prolific songwriting career together. That's why it was a little surprising when I went back, because I kind of didn't really pay that much attention to the liner notes in those days. We were getting into CDs, getting away from, or getting cassettes and CDs, getting away from the LPs. So
Yes.
you needed a magnifying glass to read those anyway. But to see, I expected a lot more, Downes, Payne, and some more Howe. But it was a little bit all over the place. Uh,
Yes.
but very strong songs. I think "Lay Down Your Arms" for me, that's probably my favorite on the album. And again, that sounds like a hit to me, but I'm not a record executive, so.
Yeah. We actually even appeared in a movie. That song was in a cartoon, which is one of the most expensive cartoons out of the UK. But the movie flopped. Who Stopped the Rain went to radio and was very successful on German and US radio. And I heard it played quite a lot and did a lot of work on it, but it just didn't transfer into sales. I think the record company ran out of money, and we didn't even shoot a video for it, which was a really stupid thing to do. Then after that, really, there was no other single on, and I think that was a shame. I think if the company spent a little bit more money at radio and been able to, get onto MTV with some video, which I think it was very short-sighted not to do a video off that album.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the MTV video era, from 82 onwards.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it was unlucky that Aqua didn't become bigger than it was.
Yeah. I think there was a German single release for Little Rich Boy, but I'm not sure how it did.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I know we sold a lot more records in Germany than anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how it is in other countries. I find that American audiences are very hesitant to take up a band when the singer changes.
Yes, and I had long conversations with a lot of people about that. I've spoken to Brian Johnson about it, and he did it very successfully.
Mm-hmm.
Spoken to Brian Howe as well, who's sadly not with us anymore, with Bad Company, following after Paul Rodgers. There's been a few bands that have been successful at doing it, but it is a struggle.
Yeah.
But the one thing is the cool thing is with when Jeff asked me to join Asia, is that he didn't choose someone that sounded exactly like a clone of John Wetton.
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, I think I brought my own style to it, which was maybe a little bit more rock or operatic in
Yeah.
some kind of way. And yeah, it it's you, it's the hardest position to replace in any band.
Yeah. Having seen your band play and listen to live albums and things like that, I can tell you that you do bring your own style to even the classic hits, and you make songs like Days Like These and Heat of the Moment. You make them your own. You don't try to be John. You try to be yourself.
Sure.
And I
And
think there's an honesty in that. I think that the fans actually appreciate that.
I'm lucky, my range hasn't changed since I was in my early 20s. So I still sing pretty much the same. Maybe I sing a little more throaty than I used to sing, perhaps. But it's it's really good to do your own thing in these songs, but also to pay homage to the original song as well.
Hmm.
There's a song I love playing is "Time Again" because it's such a challenge to sing and play bass on because it's like a jazz shuffle,
Hmm.
and I love doing that song.
Yeah, it's a great song. Do you have a favorite from Aqua?
Um, I don't know. We'll see when we start rehearsing it. I loved playing "Someday" live, and that's a warm and down song. It's a brilliant song. It's got what I love about it is um, the key change between the verse and the chorus. It really leaps, and I wanted to do almost like a Def Leppard huge harmony thing at the chorus on that,
Mm.
and I love the orchestral bit, you know, going out. But I suppose that was one of my favorites, and the guitar solo that Al Petrelli does on that is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
So I'm looking forward to playing someday.
great. Well, the great thing about these albums being as old as they are, is that you do have old school Asia fans who were there from for Asia and Alpha and Astra, but you have a following too with all of these albums that
Right, right.
that you were on, and I'm sure there are probably fans that you meet that prefer the John Payne era because
I
that's what they
get,
grew up with.
since we released the press release saying we're doing this stuff, so many more people commented on it than a usual post. And it was like, why are you not playing more of your era? You did, you know, maybe 80 different songs with Asia then and you only play a couple of them. And what's been so hard is that the whole road touring thing has changed to more um, weekend stuff and playing in festivals
Hmm.
or casinos or summer events around the states.
Hmm.
And there's that expectation of playing, okay, you've got to play Heat at the Moment, you've got to play Only Time Will Tell, and then some other stuff from the first album. But I think after this tour, which I think will maybe pull some of the uh, people out of the woodwork that actually bought my era, that maybe I'll actually start playing less of the first album and maybe just have the two big hits and then do the rest of my era stuff.
Hmm. And like you said, you'll have plenty of anniversaries for those albums too coming up. You
Sure.
know, for the auras and the arenas and the silent nations. So when the original Asia got back together, it was kind of a blow. You had a good band going, Jay and yourself and Guthrie. Uh,
Yeah.
you formed GPS with Rio
Yes.
Okamoto of Spock's Beard,
Yeah.
and this is a good album. I went and saw you guys at the Rites of Spring Festival perform.
All
Um,
right. Yeah, that it was a fun album. I wanted to do something that's a little bit more hitting on progressive metal. You know, you've got Guthrie Govan, who's one of the most incredible guitarists in the world,
yeah,
and still
terrific.
is. You know, I've had Steve Vai and Steve Lukather both come up to me and go, "Where the hell did you find this guy?" And Guthrie's going on to better, bigger, and bigger, better things. You know, been working with Hans Zimmer, and you know, he's a great friend. I still have his Guthrie. I've still got your bloody guitar on my wall. His original PRS guitar
Wow.
that he played on all his stuff. It's still here, and we still talk about doing another GPS album, but he's incredibly busy.
Hmm.
Rio's out of this world keyboard player. Obviously, people know him from Spock's Beard, and you know Jay's a great drummer. So GPS was a fun excursion.
Yeah. So instead of a follow up, I think right around then is when we got Asia featuring John Payne, and I just wondered if GPS was it just too much of a challenge to build a brand for GPS, or was there some other reason that you went back
I
to
think so.
using the Asian name?
You know, here's the problem that with ever decreasing record sales and digital media's coming along, and coming from a band that had sold millions and millions and millions of records, and there's brand recognition. I started GPS in the interim of when we were negotiating what my contract was to be furthering with Asia.
Hmm.
And then, you know, I put the GPS album out and it had great critical acclaim, but it was never meant to be a particularly radio friendly band. And, you know, I think it needed a huge financial input to put it on and tour support. We had no tour support. So that's basically when a record company gives you money to tour,
Hmm.
to sell the record. So, and they did a good job with it. And I'm very happy getting John Kolodner on the artwork. And there's some cool references in there, some pyramids in the background if you look in the window.
Hmm.
And John Kolodner was the A&R guy for at Geffen Records for Asia, funny enough. And he's a very famous executive producer and signed so many huge bands.
Sure.
But I didn't know what was going to happen with GPS. It got great press. I went out and toured in Europe with Dave Manichetti, and we supported them, and we did a tour in Japan, but it didn't quite catch fire, and that there was still interest in me with some form of Asia, and then, you know, we got Asia featuring John Payne together. That made sense touring wise because of brand recognition.
Yeah. So you went on and did some stuff with Eric Norlander, the Dukes of Orient. You mentioned that
Yes.
earlier. Dukes of Orient, interesting name because you know, sort of a tie-in with Asia a little bit there.
Sure,
Um,
yes.
what is the status of the Dukes of Orient?
The Dukes of Orient, I mean, Eric and I have talked about doing a third album. We've done two. We've never toured it. And these things, you know, are expensive to tour. Eric doesn't just go out with, you know, one Bon Tempi organ. He's got, you know, mounds of keyboards, and without those, it wouldn't look great. So, you know, that we were hoping that something would catch fire on one of those albums, you know, the two albums that we've done so far. But, you know, a lot of us at this stage, we do music because we love it, and it's just to express where we're at. If it's a secondary thing where it can either pay for itself to do another album, or it suddenly catches on with a song in a film. Then it will help the profile of the band up, and then it's like a rolling stone. Once you're out touring and you see more people. It was unfortunate that we couldn't get to tour it. It was just financially not viable.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of fans would be interested, and forgive me if this is a difficult question or if you'd rather skip it, but what is your relationship today with Jeff Downes like?
I've only bumped into Jeff a couple of times at the NAMM Music Show, and I did reach out to see if they wanted to do an anniversary together. But I think that, probably from both sides, that the split was as amicable as possible. But, that I know John Wetton wasn't very keen of my time in Asia, and that kind of caused a close relationship to be strained. Sometimes things have their time.
Mm-hmm.
So you go on a journey, and sometimes the journey has to end. Not everything's forever.
Yeah.
So what's the classic term? Musical differences. And you see these bands still going together where they absolutely freaking hate each other, like Crosby, Stills and Nash and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I remember Daltrey and Townsend used to have fist fights and stuff. And, it's life's very short, but some things are not meant to be.
Yeah. So is there something on the horizon, new recorded album from John Payne coming? You got anything in the works?
Yeah, we've got one coming. It's called, and this will be the first scoop of anywhere where I've told anybody what it's called. It's called Aviana, and starts with an A, ends with an A. And Rodney Matthews has already done the album cover, which is spectacular. And Aviana means bird-like.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge metallic bird on the cover of this album.
Well, I love Rodney's artwork. If people aren't familiar with him, he is the one that did the Aqua art.
Yeah, he's a genius.
I think this is one of the best Asia album covers.
I think so too. And he's a cancer survivor, and he's going strong and getting awards for film work that he's been doing, animated film stuff. And Rodney's truly one of my best friends. So I even played on his album. He did an album, and I played bass on it. So no, Rodney's a one-off. Great album designer, like Roger Dean. Those guys they're both genius.
Yeah, for sure. John, I have enjoyed talking to you about Aqua and about your career, and I'm sure that this is going to be a great tour. I'm sure people are going to have a great time to go and see it. They can go to your website. Where else can they find out more about you?
I think if you look on Ticketmaster, if you go to the Asia website, and some of the social media, you'll find it, and hopefully we'll be playing in a town like you. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this double anniversary. So see you on the road.
All right, John, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Wish you the best of luck. John Payne, Asia featuring John Payne on the road, coming to a town near you, hopefully.
Cool, guys. Thank you.